You're listening to the world-famous White Roof Radio with cast number 688, recorded March 14th, 2023. Listener-supported, so there's nothing else. Let's get this party started, right? Right. Hey, everybody, it's DB in Arizona with a brand new episode of the world-famous White Roof Radio. Welcome to 2023, finally. Yikes. Long time no talk. How you guys doing? Yeah. Great. Glad to hear it. We got a full show for you tonight. I'm not talking to you guys. I already talked to you guys. We spent like an hour and a half talking on Black Roof Radio. You guys need to go check that out if you haven't listened to it already. But that's Todd, of course. Todd's joined us. We were talking about printer stuff before. Todd, say hi.
Hello, I'm here.
We've got the good Reverend. Only once. Sadly, we had him 3 times earlier. You guys missed it. So that was cool. Chad Miller, Detroit 2, DetroitTune.com. He's here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Gabe is here with his sprained finger.
Hi. Well,
I'm sorry. That was just mean. Shattered. Shattered.
I wish it was sprained.
I wish it was your middle finger, Gabe. That would just be hilarious.
That would be awesome.
I mean, I don't wish pain on anybody for anything, but
ploy right off a movie.
If your middle finger was in a splint and always
it would at least allow for some hilarity.
Yes.
Right now,
exactly. I mean, that could have been a video. That could have been a video podcast for the ages, just with Gabe with his middle finger taped up and not being able to bend and always protruding.
I'm just imagining the family pictures at various events, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kids never do this.
Yeah.
Don't do this, kids.
Yeah, I like it. We have a lot of Mini Cooper stuff to talk about, even though, you know, what's really fun is that I have a lot of Mini Cooper stuff to talk about. I don't even have a Mini anymore. You guys know that because we talked about that back in December and you guys read that on the blog and nobody pinged me about that, which I think is hilarious. So nobody cared. So it's like, okay, well, that's pretty cool.
Everybody was so satisfied with your answer.
Is that what it was?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I still see him and I go, oh, that car's cool looking. Oh,
well, nobody tried to talk you out of it. That's the thing. Is like you had
a good rationale for it. I was like,
yeah,
right.
I think we're all like, you know what?
Yeah, the extra money actually is brilliant. So
I know it's not the same, but not having a small Mini doesn't feel like, to me, kind of feels the same way. Where like I really feel like I longingly look at them.
Yeah, I do too.
I know. It depends on like the weekend comes around and I get excited because I realize I get to drive the JCW hardtop all weekend.
Oh yeah.
You know, we go around and run errands because there's 2 things: is it's a smaller car and I like it better, and it's a manual transmission and it's more engaging to drive. So I look forward to the weekends when I'm like, nope, we're not going to buy a bunch of stuff. We're taking the hardtop. We're taking your car because she's had it for a year now. We just got the first oil change. And literally, I think there's 2,800 miles on the car.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing. That's great.
That is amazing. Yeah. Very cool. I get these weird, crazy ideas. And I go through Auto Trader and I start looking for R50s again. It's like, no, just no. Well, maybe that one.
You know what? You will find the right R50 at some point. And it may not be the exact same color, but it'll be like some little old lady had it for a long time and it's up for sale and it'll be super low miles. And you'll be like, you know what? I'm just going to get it because it's low dollars and it's exactly what I'm looking for.
Honestly, if I found an R50 that had less than 100,000 miles and it was under 10 grand, I'd probably buy it.
Oh, they're out there.
I know they are. Yeah. That's why I'm not looking.
you could find a 30 or 50,000 one for like $4,000 or $5,000.
I worked on an R50 last week. I did a checkerboard top and stripes on this car. And it actually belonged to a listener of the show, Greg Beachy.
Yeah, we know Greg.
And now it belongs to another friend of mine here in Kansas City. And he bought it from him. And we dressed it up, put a checkerboard top on and everything. It was so much fun. I didn't realize how freaking small the R50 and 53 are, because I've gotten used to working on taller roofs, and I still do a lot of roof graphics and stripes and things like that. But this car was like the kids' table of minis.
Yep.
Because I'm working on it, and I'm like, it's not even up to my chest. The roof of this thing, I'm kind of leaning over to work on this car.
Dude, I totally forgot how short those cars were.
And when it comes to do the bonnet stripes, I'm literally bent over in half to do the bonnet stripes. And it was just bizarre to think about, like, is this car on blocks or what? And it was on 50. It's an R50 on 15-inch white Holies.
Oh,
Best wheel
great.
ever.
Yeah, it's a
Best
British
wheel
Racing
ever.
green with the white
Oh
top.
yeah, because that's Greg's car. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was his first Mini. It was a 2002.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a great looking car when we're done with it.
Yeah,
You know,
so cool.
my shop is not tiny, but it's also not huge. And when you take a 53 in or out, you know, you're like, wow, this thing is so nimble inside the shop. It's like driving on a go-kart track. You get into like a F54 Clubman, that thing, you're like, okay, I need to look where the poles are. I need to kind of
Giant.
turn just
All
to
of a
be on
sudden-
the safe side. Now I'll
It's all
throw my
relative,
van around
too.
inside there too.
It's
Yeah.
all relative. That's like
Because it's like then you look at the Clubman next to like any normal small SUV, and it's like, oh, this is like a tiny little cute wagon.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked on a.
It's even smaller if you park it next to the X3, and the X3 comparatively is tiny, just like the Equinox was.
Yeah. Well, here's an example. I worked on a Ford, a new the Bronco, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I had one of those at my house for a week, and it was parked in the garage and parked next to the Countryman. And apart from each other, they look to be relatively the same size. I'm like, yeah, this will fit in my garage. It's probably just about the same. The Bronco is at least 6 or 8, maybe 9 inches longer than the Countryman.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Really?
2-door or the 4-door? Wait, which one?
It was a 4-door Bronco.
The real
Bronco
one
Sport.
or
The Bronco
the
Sport.
fake one? Okay.
Yeah, which somebody, I read somewhere last week that somebody said the Bronco is just a Ford Escape in a
In a
Bronco
fancy
Sport.
way.
case. And what's that phone case? The that everybody uses.
OtterBox.
The OtterBox.
Yeah, Bronco
It's
Sport.
like a Ford
That's a good
Escape in an
good
OtterBox
analogy.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Great analogy.
Bronco, the real one is based off of the what's that called? That's that mid-size truck.
The Ford F-150.
The
No,
Ranger?
mid-size.
The
The-
Ranger?
Oh, midsize. The F-250.
The Maverick, right?
Oh, the Maverick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that-
okay.
That car is disappointing. Well,
Mhm.
truck.
Maverick.
Oh yeah. It's
Never
horrible.
driven one.
Horrible interior. Horrible interior. It's
No,
like
that's for sure. What's
you're
old?
driving a hot tub. Like the
Yeah,
interior surface is like plastic.
It's old, and it's weird that they brought it because they thought, hey, we got this thing that's been around forever in the third world. Let's bring it to the U.S., which I think I dig it. Like, let's bring all those weird cars. But yeah, you're right. It's not new.
I don't know. I don't think
Nice.
we have enough weird cars here in the U.S. is the problem. That
I
everything,
agree.
all the SUVs are starting to look alike, and we've been saying this for years.
Yes.
That there's only so much you can do with an SUV, and I hope the coming of the electric generation, and we'll segue into doing a show here. I hope the coming of electrification will start getting designers to think outside the traditional, design cues that don't have to be there anymore. Like, you don't need a grill anymore necessarily. You still need a little bit of cooling for the batteries and whatnot, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I
it-
found
it's
what's
just-
wrong.
yeah.
I found what's wrong with the Maverick, Chad, and I just put a link in our Slack. Is again, that's a car with the wrong form factor.
Well, right, true. I mean, it is
That might have to be the
Maverick.
image for this. Might have to be the image for this week's show. Is this yellow Maverick I found, 1974 Maverick I found on the internet. Ooh,
which is like
boy.
a Pinto on steroids, right?
It was,
it's like
yes.
it was a
It
cross
really was.
between a Pinto and the Mustang 2.
I
Of course,
used to
you
be
put
in
an
high school
LS.
that had a Maverick.
You put an LS in it, it'll still be fast.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
put an Ellis in anything, it goes pretty fast. I mean, come on.
Well, they did put
Crazy.
one in a Tesla now, so
Yeah. Anyway, so that's great. We should probably talk about Mini Cooper stuff the rest of the way, though,
All
and
right.
not talk
Let's do
about
it.
Ford Mavericks
Well,
again.
it is automotive news.
It is automotive news. Oh, speaking last thing, automotive news. Since during our break, I went over because everybody loves the Chat GPT, right? Everybody wants to do the AI stuff, and it's just like, okay, great, whatever. So I went over to Chat GPT and I asked it to write me an introduction for White Roof Radio.
Yeah, you said
That's
you
all I
sent
said.
it to us.
That's all I said. Did I send that to you guys?
Yeah,
And
you did.
it kicked back like 3 paragraphs of proper bullshit, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah.
It was better than any LinkedIn marketer had ever done.
Yeah.
Because right from the get-go, ChatGPT at least knew White Roof Radio is a podcast about cars.
Yep.
And not about
Wow, that's
construction
great.
stuff. I was like, oh,
There you go.
wow, that's pretty impressive.
It was
Not
proper
bad,
marketing
for a
BS.
robot.
Yep. It was
Right?
proper
Oh, man, it was so good.
Putting
was
people
so
out of a
good.
job.
Well, not quite, but getting there.
We just fired the
Getting
intern this week.
We had an intern?
Yeah, the White Roof Radio intern is now homeless.
Great. I don't need
sad.
that.
But he still lives
I
in his
just don't-
parents' basement, so it's okay.
I just
Yeah.
don't need that. Come on, that's not cool. Oh, yeah, I did. I shared it right here. It's on the Slack.
Yeah.
I'll have to figure out a way to link that up in the show notes. But anyway, let's talk about Mini Cooper stuff. Before we talk about Mini Cooper stuff, well, not really before, you guys have to click back over to motoringfile.com. This is the most confusing configuration of motoring file stories we've ever had in a very long time, because the Electric Mini is dead, but then all the other stories are about the Electric Mini. It's very confusing.
Well,
It hurts my brain. And
look at it-
Gabe's going to clear it all up for us.
You get the
If you
joke if you read it.
If you look at it, it's the F-56 Electric Mini is dead.
Right.
Yes.
So, there's a picture of that F-56. So
Yeah.
you got to
But-
follow along.
Yeah, we knew that
There's
all
a
along,
lot.
though. And you said
Yeah.
that from the very beginning, is that the F-56, the converted version. So they took the gasoline-powered car, the ICE engine, internal combustion engine, and modified it to be electric. And this is the second time Mini's done this, and realizing it was a stopgap until they get to be able to build the full-on from the ground up kind of Mini. And so for those people who are only reading headlines, that's what we're
That's
talking
me.
about.
Oh, I'm totally guilty as charged.
The TLDR.
So there's an enormous amount of news over the past, I'd say, since around February 6th or something. So to back way up, one of the things that if you go way back in Motoring File, we started by taking a look at sort of exclusive photos of the new Countryman and the new F-66 Mini Cooper, which I think kind of got everybody sort of looking at this thinking, okay, great. So this stuff's happening, right?
Mm.
It's actually happening kind of quick. Number one, the Mini Countryman, which go to Motoring File, you'll see it, is big. Second, the F-66 Mini Cooper is an internal combustion engine. And so we'll talk about that in a second, because I'm going to summarize some of this. So that kind of then snowballed and got us digging through sources asking, okay, when did these things actually launch? Because I think that's the thing a lot of people have been trying to figure out. When did they launch and what countries are they coming from? What's not coming to the United States? Most of our listeners are in the United States, not all of them. And one of the things, and we uncovered some pretty interesting things. So for one, and we're going to start off with the Mini Countryman and when this comes, because this is kind of one of the first sort of big bombshell, if you will. It's coming soon, as in Mini is starting production on the all new Mini Countryman, completely new, codenamed U25,
Okay.
this November.
Which means a year from now, we'll be seeing them in showrooms.
Yeah, no, I mean, before that, most likely. Well, February, but yeah, I mean, it'll hit the ground in the U.S. around February. It is going to be starting, and this is what gets really interesting. There's lots of different versions of it. So the Mini Countryman, there's no Cooper anymore. Get to that in a second.
Yeah, okay.
Begins production November 23. The Countryman S is November 23. The JCW is reportedly November 23, although I find that hard to believe. I think that actually is going to be pushed back a little bit. And then the electric Countryman SE will be March 24. So now everybody's like, okay, wait a second. There's an electric Countryman. Yes, there's a full electric Countryman. We'll talk about that in a second. The Countryman is going to be now the base model. There's no more Cooper. That base model is not coming to the United States.
Oh.
Our base model will be the Countryman S.
Interesting.
Which is, I think a lot of people are a bit surprised by that, I would assume.
I am not surprised. I'm not surprised
really,
at all, Gabe, because
I'm really not surprised at all.
For the last 6 months, I can't tell you the last time I saw a new Cooper go through our dealer. They don't exist. They're ghosts now.
Yeah,
it's like
I rarely see Cooper of any shape or size unless it's in like a R55, R56, R50.
Yeah, I just don't see them at all.
I'm going to go through like a lot of this information, but it's all in these Motoring File stories. The Cooper, or I'm sorry, the Countryman will not come to the United States. It will have roughly 155 horsepower or thereabouts elsewhere, and the Countryman S will have 200 horsepower. So you're going to see an increase. The JCW is going to be, and this is where I'm going to give you the full information. We've reported about this for a while, so this is not necessarily new. Motorfile has been actually on this for about a year now, but it's been confirmed. We're going to see a 315 horsepower version of that B48 in the JCW, all four.
Really?
So,
which makes sense, because that's kind of what they boosted up to, like the X1, X2.
Which they haven't released that next X1, X2 yet.
No, but they share an engine, and they announced the information about what was coming on it. And so you kind of read between the lines, if you can, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, and it seems to be pretty close now.
The only info that they've had, they basically said, they said it's sort of capable of that.
Right.
Of course, BMW is like, we're not going to tell you what cars, but we all know. And so it's been confirmed. It's all these ICE engines, internal combustion engines, are mild hybrids. What's that mean? Not much. It gives you a little bit more boost in certain passing situations, and it eases the stop-go, auto start stop stuff. So more horsepower in the ICE version. In the BEV, battery electric vehicle, for those kind of at home, things get really kind of interesting. The power is going to be 140 kilowatts. Do you know what that means?
No clue.
Not a clue.
600 horsepower.
1.21 gigawatts. That's what that means.
So, now I'm looking it up because I had it. It's about 190 horsepower. That's the base model Countryman E. The Countryman SE is going to have around 268 horsepower. So it's going to have a lot more power. So if you want fast, you're going to want the BEV. You're going to want the electric.
Yeah.
It's going to be quick. I don't have info on the JCW Countryman BEV yet. It hasn't been confirmed, and I think it's a couple years out. But you get the idea. It's pretty.
You can assume, because it's right now. It's at like 302 now. The Countryman that I've got in my garage, the gasoline powered one. So we can only assume that it's probably going to push probably 340, something like that. I mean, just a guess.
I would guess that's about true. I would say 330 something.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say that's around true. So I think where it gets really interesting is range of the Countryman. So we're sticking with the Countryman for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
So the Countryman S and eventually the JCW will have an extended fuel tank, by the way, which for those who have had to deal with the range on those things, it isn't bad, but it's the larger fuel tank in the United States. The BEV will have a range of, and this is WLTP range, which is the European range, of 440 kilometers for the lower powered version and 420 kilometers for the higher powered version. The higher powered version is what we will get. So what the hell does that mean, right? So we're looking at
that's roughly 275 miles.
Roughly. And if you look at how the EPA calculates that,
no,
you're looking at, because it's about 22% less typically than a WLTP, you're looking at about a 212 mile range, roughly. Yeah. One thing that's super important to note is, and people always be like, oh, that's probably like, really 180. BMW is very conservative with their range. I've driven every electric car they've ever sold. I've always gotten more than they say. So, will it be lower in the cold, like, when it's -5? Sure. But
or when it's 100, or when it's 120.
Same way. I don't know what that means. But if they say it's a certain range, it's typically that range.
Well, and can I also say that for anybody who's afraid of that, is like my JCW Countryman now, I do a lot of in-town driving, and I kind of drive the piss out of it because that's just who I am. My range on a full tank of gas, and it's got like a 16-gallon tank, is roughly 300 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's
so
that's what I mean, Todd.
I know
Like,
when
it's,
you think about it, you're
Yeah.
like, who cares? It's really,
Well,
not that different.
the reason why you care is because 212 isn't 300, and
Right.
it doesn't take you 3 hours at a malfunctioning charging unit to fill up.
That's true.
That's
So
yeah, you had
that's
to
the
wait in line
problem.
for 2 hours behind a whole bunch of Teslas and Bros and trucks to
We're
use.
gonna
but
make
gonna be
the
just like
assumption
every other
it'll be
electric
fixed.
thing that you have.
Yeah.
You're just going to plug it in when you get it. Like
And most people, I mean, the data shows, I mean, the vast majority of people charge at home, so it's
Yeah.
not really an issue. It's really just those sort of corner cases, road trips, et cetera, where it is a real issue. But anyway, I mean, that's for another podcast. Like, and that is a serious
that
concern.
that is
I've dealt
because
with that
actually,
myself.
and I've talked to some people. My daughter-in-law and son-in-law actually, they just got Hyundai IQ. I know Ionic 5. It's a
Mhm.
freaking car from outer space. It's very
Right.
cool.
Yeah, it's a cool car.
Yeah, it is.
But they did not get the charger installed at home. She works for the government, so she always has charging at work. So they charge it at work. And if you try to charge that car off of just like an extension cord plugged into a
Takes like
110
3
outlet,
days.
Yeah, it takes forever.
That particular car will never fully charge. They were told
Yeah, I did a
off of a 110 circuit. None of
I did
choose
a
to do it.
220. I
Yeah.
just installed a 220, and it goes from like 3.5 days to charge, to like, I don't know, 7-8 hours or something. So yeah, I mean, it's not rocket science, but yeah, it costs a little money. You need to have a little planning, et cetera. But I guess the point is that this is like a seismic shift, because, and again, we're going to talk about this in a second, but this is the mini electric car in the United States moving forward.
The country.
The F56 electric, the Mini Cooper SE, will be dead at the end of this year. They're ceasing production. Why? Because Mini made a bet 5 years ago that they would build an electric Mini Cooper from the ground up, totally ground up, like a bespoke design, so they could maximize the platform and create the most efficient platform for an electric vehicle. And that is the car that they decided to build in China. Why did they do that? Well, that was where the market was at the time. The Chinese government was, and they still are, demanding a certain percentage of cars be built that are electric, a high percentage. So they become, because of that, the world leader in electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
You can say whatever you want about China, because of that plan that the government put forth, they are now the world leader. And BMW looked at that and said, okay, so then we're going to partner with a company there that we trust. And we're going to partner because it's going to be super expensive to build this car, because we don't have a BMW to twin it with. We can't like have a tiny little BMW front wheel drive hatchback. And the current F56, they tried to sort of, twin it with their front wheel drive or all wheel drive / front wheel drive vehicles, X1 and X2, et cetera. But it didn't work so well. They've always felt that the F56 was a little ungainly and a little like just wasn't as mini as they wanted it to be. It wasn't perfect because of the proportions and the packaging more than anything. And so like, okay, great, we're going to make a bespoke package. Well, of course, and now I'm going to veer into the other part of this. The problem is geopolitics and the whole U.S.-Chinese relations blowing up over the past 3 to 4 years. And so it makes it next to impossible to import a car from China in the United States, which means a car with razor thin margins like the Mini Cooper electric, the next generation, straight up, if it's made in China, it won't come to the US, period. Which means right now, officially, the only next generation electric Mini will be the Countryman. But that is going to change, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah, well, and the crazy thing to think about that too is that there's going to be like probably a 1 to 2 year lag before we see what we call the hardtop version of a Mini electric. Is that correct?
No, it's gonna be more than that. So
okay,
so Mini is not stupid. They look at this and they realize this was, a bit of a, I don't know if you call it an error on their part, but an unfortunate circumstance of geopolitics.
Bad luck.
And so they're like, okay, great. So this isn't going to work. And we cannot, if you read what's out there, Sky News has reported this in the UK. We've had a couple other folks, really, in a sense, other sources somewhat confirm this. But what it looks like right now, and we reported on this in Modern File last October. The Mini, the J01 electric Mini Cooper, which is what it's called, that's designed and built from the ground up and was going to be produced in China, is going to be produced around 2026, 27 in the UK. So they're going to basically take, most likely, the LCI version of that, the refreshed version of that, and begin producing it in the UK for Europe and North America. And it gets even more interesting after that, and I'll go into it in a second. But what that does, though, is it means that there's going to be a gap between this year, essentially November, and potentially 2027 until we see another electric Mini Cooper.
So like 3.5, 4 years.
That could be.
Which is a bit of an embarrassing thing for a car company that has claimed to be going all electric.
By
Yeah, that
20.
could be too long.
Yeah. But hey, can I put the positive spin on this and say, from what we've seen, and we've all been around, like we've been doing this show for 16, 30 years now, whatever it is, that we see there could be an upside to this, and that how right now we've got electric cars in the US are selling around 10% of cars, and we're just barely there now. 10% of cars are electric. We're just not quite there yet. The appeal is not hit the mass appeal. The infrastructure is not available for charging stations and whatnot. And it's going to take a couple of years for that to happen. This could be an upside. This could be a good thing for Mini, that by the time everybody gets through the growing pains of making the shift from gasoline-powered cars to electric cars, and for everybody to finally get on board, it's probably going to take another 3 to 5 years to get there. And Mini is going to be primed for that because they will have the experience of dealing with the car made in China, going to the rest of the world, and all of the growing pains that go along with that. And like you said, that maybe by the time they hit their LCI and start building this at Plant Oxford, that they're going to hit their stride and just be like gangbusters by the time it comes out.
That's a good point. Well, I think what's interesting to me is that, again, Mini sort of saw this coming. They saw it coming a while back, in that they saw that there was going to be a lag they were being aggressive, and they realized, well, wait a second, we need to have an ICE Mini Cooper. Again, I'm using that term because that's not the term Mini's using. We talked about it in the last show. The small car is now known as the Mini Cooper. The word Cooper has been eradicated from the other models. So
Got it.
They're like, okay, we actually do need an ICE Mini Cooper. It's sold globally because not everybody's ready for that transition, rightfully so, as you just mentioned. And so what they're doing to sort of create a stopgap is they're heavily modifying the F56 Mini Cooper, like heavily, entirely new interior, really, really different styling on the outside, lighting wise, upping the power, et cetera, et cetera. All cars will get dual clutches. That car begins production. And again, this is kind of interesting because it's happening quick. That car begins production in March, basically a year from now. So what we're looking at is that's going to actually start in the US. Production will start for the US in July of 2024. For the rest of the world, it's going to be March of 2024. So you're going to see that happen, within a year. And that car will look to most people like the J01 electric Mini Cooper because the headlights, taillights, wheels are going to be somewhat identical, but it's still going to have the same proportions, meaning the ICE version, the one we all know, has a shorter wheelbase and a longer front overhang. The electric Mini that's coming has a longer wheelbase and a shorter front overhang. If you're following me, it's going to look better because of that. But here's what's really interesting. I got all these numbers today. The car is identical in length. Like, we thought it was going to be shorter. It's not. It's in fact, the data that I got says it's actually about a centimeter longer. So it's basically identical. It's going to be lower, but the wheelbase will be decidedly longer.
Wow. Okay.
It's interesting.
My concern, I guess, is, so how long is there not going to be an electric car for sale on a Mini Cooper dealer's lot?
Well, there'll be a Countryman next. Yeah, there won't be a gap. It'll be on lots by next March,
Yeah.
essentially the Countryman.
Yeah,
No, that's not
okay.
true. Probably May.
Yeah, okay. Because I mean, it's just weird because every automotive manufacturer now has like not just a electric car in their lineup, right? I mean, Chevy's converted everything to electric, Nissan's converting everything to electric, Audi's converting everything to electric, and these are all cars that are available now. Hyundai's got 2 or 3, Kia's got one. I mean, everybody's got electric
Hyundai
cars.
and Kia are really market leaders in this, I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
they've got you can't swing a dead cat without hitting electric cars anymore, and then you walk over to the Mini dealer, it's like, oh, what do you guys got? Well, we have this Countryman.
Well, here's the most painful thing about that too is that you realize JD Power just came out with their electric vehicle satisfaction survey,
Yeah.
and behind Rivian is the number one. I think that's it. That's how you pronounce that car company, right?
It is.
Rivian?
There's one in my
Okay.
there's one in my neighborhood.
Okay,
It's a
So
gorgeous truck.
Rivian's number one in electric vehicle satisfaction. Guess what number 2 is?
Mini.
Mini
Is it really?
is number 2, and in fact, it's the number 1 small, so non-premium. So they put them in 2 different categories, like the premium, like the Rivian, the Tesla, Audi, and Polestar are up in the premium category. And then there's like the normal person category, like affordable electric cars. Mini is at the top of that, and the next one behind it is the Kia EV6, followed by the Ford Mach-E, which has been getting a lot of good reviews. But Mini is head and shoulders above both of those other cars in satisfaction for electric cars. And that, to me, is the most painful part of this whole thing to think about. They've built such good customer goodwill and such good reviews. And by the time people start thinking about that, towards the end of the year, they're like, hey, I'm thinking about getting an electric Mini Cooper. And they're like, sorry, we don't make it anymore.
Yeah. No, that's true. It's gonna be interesting.
Rough.
So
Yeah, actually, the Mini Cooper is at the top of that list for overall customer satisfaction for all electric vehicles for 2023. It's the Mini's first, the Kia EV6 is second, and then followed by the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Ioniq 5, and the Honda ID4, et cetera, and so on. Nissan Leaf at the bottom. That's mostly because it's ugly.
Yeah.
So the Mini Countryman. I'm sorry. The Mini Countryman. We talked about the Mini Cooper, the electric Mini Cooper, next generation, of course. I'm going to use the code names for a second. The J01 Mini Cooper,
Yeah,
which is
small
the
one.
all electric. The F66 Mini Cooper, which is the internal combustion version. The U25 Countryman, and then there's one more, and it's a replacement for the Clubman, which RIP, by the way.
Yeah.
Going to go out of production in a year. The Mini Aceman, the J05. The Mini Aceman's an interesting one. It's all electric. There's never going to be an ICE version. It has the exact same powertrain as the J01 Mini Cooper, but it's heavier. And so you'd expect the range to be lower. Mini actually quotes the same range, which I kind of question.
Okay.
It's really interesting, though. Like it's essentially the same size. It's a tiny bit bigger than the original Countryman, but it has the interior volume of the current Countryman,
Interesting.
which is kind of cool in a sense. Like that, like it's a pretty mini type of thing. Wheels at the corner, short overhang. It looks really interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with sales with it, with where it's built ultimately as well.
When you do away with the drivetrain tunnel that goes through a car, it's amazing how much cubic feet you regain from that when you can have a completely flat floor. Now, sure, you got to shrink that floor a little bit for batteries underneath, but still cubic feet capacity, it really does expand because of that.
But we've always had that because the Minis are front drive, so there's no tunnel.
Well,
the big thing is the engine.
The Countryman,
the
Countryman
now,
there is.
Oh yeah,
the engine is like tiny. Like it's an eighth of the size. And so the front, and if you look at the new, and there's a bunch of photos on MotorFile if you click through the latest article on any of the latest articles, you'll see.
Yeah, I'm looking at one that's got three shots. All three of the cars.
Yeah, so you'll see that, and what you notice if you look carefully is the dimensions have changed. So the bulkhead, i.e., where the glass meets sort of the back of the hood, has been pushed forward. And they can do that because the engine is so small now. They don't need as much of a hood anymore. They don't need as much of a space there. It's kind of like the original Mini. And so the dimensions are, I know it doesn't look like the original Mini because it's not as boxy, but it's closer to the original only because of that. Especially if you see like an overhead shot specifically.
Yeah.
So it's
the overhead shot is interesting because I'm looking at the overhead shot specifically, and it's got the J01, the J05, and then the U25, and the J05 actually looks smaller than the J01, and you're saying it's the opposite. But in this picture, it looks smaller, and that just might be the proportions with the wheels actually pushed out to the corners.
It's about 2 meters. Is that right? 2 meters bigger. It's 4.
What?
It's 400. Is that right? No. Wait.
No, that can't be right.
True.
Yeah,
that can't be true. So
big.
it's 475 millimeters long.
So 47 centimeters. It's still pretty. Oh, that's total length.
Yeah. So it's 160 inches versus 151. So yeah. So it's about all in. It's about a foot shorter.
Yeah. Okay.
The small one, or the big one's about the Aceman's about a foot longer. So it really is about the size of the original Countryman. It's not like it's right around that.
Well, and as big as everybody perceives the Countryman to be, it's not that big. I mean, I drive it every day.
Especially the original one.
It's
huge.
Yeah, it's not that big.
It's not that big.
Huge.
Well, especially when you lower it 3 inches like I did.
Yeah. No, it's amazing when you put those cars and people go, "Oh my God, the car's so huge." And in a land of classic minis and R50s, sure it is. But in a land of your local Safeway parking lot, that car is minuscule.
Oh yeah.
Well, because they don't make small cars in the U.S. anymore. It's really hard to find a small car.
How much smaller these compact SUVs are than, I don't know, every other car in the parking lot.
Well, even you think about something like, say, a Honda Fit, and that's about as small a car as you can almost imagine now. That's you can currently buy, and it is basically it's pretty damn close to the same length as a Countryman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna blow your mind there.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
Not allowed. That's like my kid turning 18. No, not allowed.
So I think what's really going to be really interesting because minis, there's going to be a lot of changes with these cars and even with what we're getting in the U.S. So the U.S. to sort of recap here, the U.S. is going to get a heavily revised F56. We're going to call the F66. It's going to get an all new Mini Countryman, the U25. There will be a heavily revised 5-door called the F65. There will be, of course, a heavily revised convertible called the F67. Those will all be ICE vehicles, internal combustion. The Countryman, of course, will be internal combustion and will be electric. And then in about roughly, this is a rumor, but roughly 2027, we believe we'll see the bespoke, fully electric Mini Cooper and maybe the Aceman as well in the U.S. And who knows? I mean, by that point, you might see a greater range as well.
Well, wouldn't it be fascinating to see if the 3-year in between there, that Mini kind of takes the market for gasoline powered cars because they're
that's funny.
one of the few
only
remaining
one left.
Yeah, one of the few remaining gasoline powered cars, not to mention small cars. And
gas prices could go through the roof. I mean, there could be a million other things, regarding that. So,
well, other than the JD Power survey that I read about electric cars, Mini has also been rated by Consumer Reports very high, like the best brands now. BMW was number 1, and Mini was number 3. Most favored, best brand of car. Wow. Is that amazing to think about how far they've come from the R56 years of everybody complaining about how Minis aren't reliable. Now it's like it's up there in the top 3 now.
Honestly,
it's fascinating.
That's crazy. Good for them.
One side note.
Yeah,
go ahead. Really quick. I just want to correct something I said. I said I didn't believe that the JCW would be made would begin production 11/23. It's going to be 11/24. So
it's another year.
That's late breaking news. So and that totally makes sense.
So we won't have a JCW Countryman for a whole nother,
that's the F66.
F66.
Also, by the way, I don't have any confirmation on power yet. But if everything else is getting bumped up, here's the question: like, are we going to still stick with 231 horsepower, or are we going to use the 260 horsepower version of that engine that BMW uses in other front-wheel drive cars? And then that leads to another question, and this is a big one: are we still going to see manual transmissions? So there was an article from Autocar. BMW gave a couple magazines from the UK exclusive access to, which I was pretty annoyed by, and have subsequently complained to many. Why wasn't I there? But in all seriousness, they just sort of kind of randomly mentioned that, we probably won't have manual transmissions anymore. And I'm going to say right now, I'm going to go on record and say, I don't think that's true for the US. I think that we're still going to have manual transmissions. However, this is just me saying this. I really don't have a source on this, but based on everything I know and how BMW thinks and how, they think about the US market, I think if they can just simply carry over the manual transmission on the Cooper and the Cooper S, they will. And if they go up to 260 horsepower on the JCW, I expect we will not have a manual transmission on the JCW. If they keep it at 231, I think we will. Yeah. That's purely my guess.
Well, and that's just kind of like you see the writing on the wall with what they did with both the Countryman and the Clubman when they boosted that to 300 horsepower. It's like bye-bye manual transmission. Even though we saw Honda get away with it, you can still get a manual transmission in the Type R. Mini just was like, nope, we're not putting the money into it.
Well, they'd have to really invest a lot of money in better clutches.
Right.
Really is what it's going to come down to. They just don't want to have...
And longevity, too. Like, I have no idea how long the Type R Honda is going to last.
Well, you're right, though, Chad. That's exactly it. Like, they'd have to certify an entirely new transmission because they don't have anything that can deal with that much torque on a front-wheel drive platform.
And it's not a volume enough. Yeah.
And make that clutch feel good for an average person, too. Like, now you're not running a race clutch,
You're not like
you
stiff.
Can do it.
It's very possible.
Do it because that Type R is nice, but I really think BMW is going to be, if you see 260 and if you see a rumor that's going to be 260, I guarantee you, again, this is my belief, it's not a fact, but I strongly believe we won't see a manual.
Well, how many times are they going to get rid of the manual, get rid of the pops and bangs, bring the pops and bangs back, bring the manual back? I mean, how many times can they do this, regardless of being electric or not electric?
Yeah.
How many? There's no pops and bangs in an electric car, but I mean, how many times can they do this before they just lose their entire audience? Well, these guys don't know what they're doing.
Well, I mean, I think with everything that happened the past few years, I think there's a little forgiveness. I mean, just because knowing what the take rate is on the manual, it's high right now.
People love it. They love it, love it, love it. There's a lot of people that don't buy them right now because they couldn't get it,
Yeah, but especially the JCW, and this is why I think I just wonder if Mini USA is in the driver's seat here, because a lot of, like, Germany, for instance, and I'm only saying this because of the M3 and M4 and some of the other cars, they are not sentimental at all in that country when it comes to manual transmissions. They're like, we're done. It's not efficient. It's not the most efficient, transmission. You're done. Whereas, there's, in the UK, there's still a little bit, I think, more love for it. In the US, of all places, we have this, like, and I think part of it is the fact that, like, we have a lot of straight, boring roads. We just like some engagement,
Yeah.
Right.
And it's one of those things that these and especially when you think about going to electric, these car makers are going to have to solve. I mean, if it's not on a manual transmission, they got how do you engage with the car? How do you connect people with it?
I don't know.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just going to be texting and driving all the time.
I think I think for most of us here, there's a large amount of nostalgia to it because, I mean, I grew up, I learned driving on a manual I started riding motorcycles when I was 8 years old, and you learn the clutch and everything, and then it just becomes part of you. The engaging factor in the first cars. I mean, I've only had like three automatic transmission cars in my life.
It's that first and second shift under hard throttle, you're like, banging second. All right. And then you feel better. I had somebody at work the other day, they were having a bad day. I was like, you know what? Just go outside, do a burnout. And they're like, what? I'm like, go do a burnout.
It makes you feel better. Really good.
Yep. Exactly. It makes you feel better. And that's what the
Chad,
clutch.
I so
Does.
wish I could do that on a bad day.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just pull up in like
She's
I just
in
pull up
like
in the
a little
Hoonigan
Ford
YouTube
Focus
channel.
suit,
It works
so
for me.
it's funny.
Nice.
Chad's not wrong, because there's something about, as fast as my Countryman is, you don't get that visceral feeling. There's not an excitement of pulling out and just like smoking it and shifting through the first 3 gears.
I think it's part of it too. And Todd, I mean, I've had those cars and they're so fast and fun, but you don't feel like you're in control as much as you are in a 115 horsepower R50 with a manual transmission. Like, you just feel like you are the one controlling if this car is going to like break, blow up, or go into a ditch.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna miss a shift. Like, you're in control 100%.
It's that
Right.
rawness that's what people are looking for. That raw feel that the R53s all had, or the 50s even. That you're looking for that raw feel. And that's what a manual transmission gives you in the feel of the car. It makes you connected with it. It gives you that rawness.
I will say that
I think
driving the automatic JCW, you feel more like a passenger than the driver. It's too comfortable. You're not really doing that much, but hanging on to the steering wheel. Now, I've really punched
it is addicting though.
Yeah,
The speed is addicting.
For the first time since I had my car, I finally felt a little bit of torque steer when it shifted. I wasn't hanging onto the steering wheel enough.
First to second. Yeah.
Yes, and it did it, and I'm like, "Holy crap! Where did that come from?"
I definitely felt that. I feel you feel it more in the Countryman than the Clubman because of the weight transfer. But yeah, I think I guess I'll leave it at this. Like, if I was creating something, like, I would love if they went. Basically, like, listen, we're gonna just produce one manual transmission that's going to be able to handle up to 260 horsepower, whatever the foot-pound of torque it is. We're going to offer it in every one of our small cars, maybe in just a few markets. And Chad, this is the key thing for me: reduce some of the things that they've added that have taken away. They've like sort of rubberized some of the feel of the shifting specifically.
Yeah.
So in a sense, like, go back a generation to a previous gate drag.
Make it a little notchier, make it a little more raw, make it a little more less housewife, more.
Like, go drive a good BMW, like, from a few years ago. Like, they weren't notchy, but man, you could feel everything, and it felt great. Or a Porsche, like, spend a little money and make it. And here's the key: don't make it free. Make it $2K. Make it $1,500. And offer it through the end of the decade and be done with it. And that's how you go out. And I'm sure
they could even make
that doesn't make any
track
sense
editions.
So okay, we went through all this, but the only thing I heard and the only thing I really have to say is, so you mean there's a chance I could still go get a Clubman on my dealer's lot till the end of the year?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, let's we can end it on that. The Clubman is dead, but
as long as you only want just a basic Clubman and not like a fancy JCW.
Forget I'm out. Yeah.
You can order JCWs.
I just built one. So
the reason I ask is because I actually talked to Minnie about it, because they wouldn't, of course, they won't confirm anything that we report on Motor Trail, but I said, listen, I know it's going away. Like, all I ask is you let me know when the last moment I can order one is, because I am interested, in actually buying that car, because I know with the smaller cars, I've got another 7 years.
Sure.
They're going to go till essentially 2031. But the Clubman is gone forever.
Right.
And so it's coming, but you can still,
it's going to be just like but not much. It's going to be just like the Coupe and the Roadster. Because I swear, I talked to my dealer, and they're like, every month they get somebody come in, at least one person a month, still are like, I saw this thing, like this mini Roadster. It was a little 2-seater convertible. Can I get one of those? I mean, and how long has it been gone? They stopped making that in, 15?
Oh,
15, yeah. Wow,
so crazy. It's going to be the same way with the Clubman. As soon as it's gone, everybody's going to...
I got a JCW in Island Blue with a white roof, ready to go. Just gotta, find the $50,000 to buy it. So as soon as I get that, taken care of. Maybe not. Probably not. We'll see. No, I still think the next car, if we have to put a car in our garage, if we have to put a car in our garage in the next 3 months, it'll be ICE. If we don't have to put a car in our garage till the end of the year, it's probably going to be electric.
I'm all about affordability of it too. It's like, it doesn't, I'm kind of indifferent to it now. It's like whatever's available when I'm ready to get a car, I'll move in that direction.
Yeah.
I'm not in the, I got to have another ICE vehicle, or my next vehicle is, damn it, is going to be an electric car. I really am indifferent to it. I'll go either way. I'm getting old. I don't really care that much. I just want to be comfortable. I want it to be enjoyable to drive, and I want it to be reliable. Those are my criteria. And I don't want it to bankrupt me. I'm not going to go buy a $80,000 car just because, it's the electric that's available. It's the newest, coolest, whatever. So,
well, I think there's a couple of reasons why somebody might go electric or not. Right now, there's a ton of tax breaks. There's a ton of incentives to do that. But those are eventually going to go away because, you know what? It's just another car like every other car. There are some interesting road funding things, especially in Michigan, of gas tax versus no gas taxes. So eventually, the electric car people are going to have to pay up at some point, as if things start to go in a different direction.
State legislatures are trying to figure out what to do when they lose the tax revenue from gasoline,
and they're going to be so late on all those things.
I've already got this fixed. Every state just needs to allow a legal sale of cannabis. Fixed it.
Well,
you guys are welcome. You can have that one.
They're not using it for anything yet.
Do you guys not do that? I thought everybody did that.
No, not everybody, Gabe. I follow a couple sites that they Todd doesn't. You just got it.
We just got it in Missouri, and we have to drive across the state line. Legally, we can't, go from Kansas in there, but everybody does it.
A border checkpoint here before too long, but
I just I just did last week, and I'm like, I didn't see anybody stopping me on the way back to Kansas, so screw them.
I don't know. I carry it on flights every week.
Yeah, exactly. Put it in your carry-on.
I wouldn't mind having an electric something. I've actually been looking at like electric motorcycles just because that would be like a little more fun for me, I think, in my day-to-day journeys. Mm-hmm. But you're 25,000 for an electric bike. I'm like, I don't know if I want to spend that type of money.
Right.
But I will say it's kind of interesting. I just listened to, and Gabe might even know this, the State of the Detroit speech here, and we're actually going to have the first inductive road here, right there outside the train station, starting construction in 2024, I think.
I got to say, I heard a panel with the head of the Michigan highway. I don't know his title exactly, and some other folks in the government that work on that. Like, they are so far ahead, and I can't, you don't think of I love Michigan, love it. Like it's like a second, maybe it's actually probably my only really home state anymore. But you don't think of them being first in a lot of things typically with Detroit. But oh my God, they're so far ahead of those states. No, Chicago's got it.
No, Chicago's way more than Detroit is.
Yeah, we got that. I have a habit. I know.
We have the first paved roads. We'll have the first. But
it's impressive though. In all seriousness, there's a lot of cool stuff that they're doing in Michigan. Even on the proposed I-94 corridor from Chicago to Detroit. Turn that into a smart highway. It's pretty interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think there's some cool stuff happening. I mean, we're going to get over the charging infrastructure. I know it's going to be painful for probably a decade, but it'll eventually swap quick. As soon as companies realize there's money to be made. The problem, of course, is going to be the second it costs more, like it does in England right now, to charge a car than it does to fill it up. Everybody's like, wait, why did we do this?
Yeah, exactly. So weird. Right. So weird. And Chad, don't look for an electric motorcycle, man. I was on my bike the other day. I forgot where I was heading back from. Doesn't matter. I was on my electric bike cruising along. Some dude comes blasting past me like I'm standing still, and he just has a single wheel between his feet.
Oh yeah, those are all over Chicago.
This dude was doing like 50 miles an hour on the path. He was riding along like that thing was a part of him. Yeah. And I was like, whoa.
Everywhere.
I'd like something maybe with a little more glove box. I mean, at that point, I could really have just an e-bike at some point.
No, you just need a backpack and this 50-mile-an-hour wheel at your feet, dude. That's all you need, man.
Yeah,
Go.
that's
And
that's
it
a
may-
young man's game, DB. I mean, we were just talking about being old. It's like one spill on that, and we're done. That's it.
Yeah,
Put us
exactly.
in
That's
the
why I don't
ground.
have that. That's why I don't have that. Yeah, because I like my hips and my shoulders. So we'll go with that.
No amount of elbow pads is going to solve that problem.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's taking up roller skating, so we're doing that, and that's still kind of a death wish right now. So,
Yeah, you probably stay away from that.
but we're doing good. We're doing good.
All right, cool. Hey, Gabe, thanks for filling us in. Everybody, don't forget, I don't know where you guys are getting your Mini Cooper news, and it's not motoringfile.com, but just stop. I can just feel, I don't go to Facebook anymore, and I don't go to Twitter anymore, but I can just feel that you guys are still sharing websites about Mini Cooper news from that weird site that had that really weird pictures of the new Countryman without any of the cladding on it, and it was like a very bad Photoshop job. Have you guys seen that? Stop sharing that. What are you doing? Oh my god.
Go Motoring is
Motoringfile.com.
still around.
Motoringfile.
No.
Go Motoring. Go, you know what? Somebody, and this is really
It's
funny
for
that you
sale.
mentioned that. Somebody actually, is it really? It's for sale?
I think
Oh,
so.
I
Look
thought it
at
was coming soon. And now we gotta check. God damn it. Hang on, let's check. Oh, it is. It's for sale now.
Right.
Anyway, that's not what I was saying. No, I actually had to make, somebody asked me about RSS feeds. I'm going, well, yeah, I made whole websites filled with nothing but RSS feeds. And they go, what? And I'm like, yeah. And I, like half an hour later, I cobbled together a page at tomburnside.com. Like, here, we used to do this all the time. And they went, oh, I had no idea. What's
Here's your
old is
feed.
new again. Yeah.
Back in my day.
Yeah. Well, because Twitter's turning into a hellhole. If you guys are
No,
following me
right.
there, you'll notice I haven't posted for a long time. I just can't deal with the algorithms anymore with the meta sites. I just can't. Honestly, I just can't do it. And I've just gone all full in on Mastodon. So if you guys are looking for somebody to follow on Mastodon, go over there. I'm there. Ping me on the
DB,
show
you
notes,
gotta
I'll link it
help
up.
me figure out Mastodon.
It's too
I'm-
complicated.
No,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it's
tell
really
you.
complicated for me.
I'm gonna give you this is the super easy Mastodon. You know what Mastodon is? I'm gonna tell you what it is right now. And as soon as you think about it this way, you guys are totally gonna get it. You ready?
It's like a message board. I know.
It's a message board.
Well, I'll just use Reddit then.
Yeah.
Just use Reddit.
I
There you
spend
go.
a lot of time on Reddit too.
Yeah,
It's
Reddit's
really
great.
getting a lot more play. It was for, you go about once a week and you could catch up pretty quickly. But now
Well,
there's
not
enough
anymore.
people posting on it
Yeah.
but it's a lot of noobs. There's a lot of like the
Well,
mini
yeah, it's all the
stuff
people that are like,
especially.
oh, I can't deal with
Like-
Twitter
like-
anymore.
I know they're
because-
posting the picture of the cleavage R50 from
Oh my
freaking
God.
20 years ago.
And I bet you know
see
what?
this? I'm like, oh, God.
That's gonna stop. I'm gonna tell you right now. That's gonna stop working because I'm shutting down dbmini.us, and that domain's not gonna get renewed. And as soon as the dbmini.us domain goes away, that image will die
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure everybody's hot links that one anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It'll be in the Wayback Machine.
Yep.
It's like
Yeah.
the F-150 versus the mini crash test I had on Bridger.us
Yeah.
Oh
that
gosh,
I
yes.
accidentally deleted, but I would make I think I would make like $30 or $50 a month just on an ad on that page because so many people would go there. It's probably more than that actually, but anyway,
It's
yeah, I
Probably
accidentally
more than
deleted that
that.
one day.
Ah, there it is. Yes. You know what? For those of you who are new around these parts and have no idea what we're talking about, well, I will probably go ahead and make this the image for this week's show.
Done and done.
Let's
Perfect.
Sorry I brought it
just
up.
go ahead. Let's just go ahead and do that.
It was also
Yep.
the image for show 156.
Was it really?
No, I don't. I
Wow.
just pulled
Oh.
a young number out of my head. Rain Man over here. Yes, that was show number.
Yeah, that was impressive.
That was really good, Chad. Really good.
All right,
Hang on,
well,
I got to copy this
we
really
made-
quick. There's an edit here. Hang on. I
We
just
made
got
a
to
real
put this
show.
here. Whoop. There we go. There. I've got it for later. As I need that for the show.
That's it.
That was just ridiculous.
There they are.
Right? Yeah, there they are. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that was not at dbmini.us. Yeah, this is at someplace in the title of the image is called boobcar.jpg. And just like, oh, of course. That's exactly what it is.
It's funny because I just
Or Him Magazine. That's what that's from.
Yeah, from FHM. Yeah.
Not even around anymore.
I'm succumbing to my injuries right now.
All right,
Very
we're
good,
out.
Gabe. Thank you for joining us, sir. Motoringfile.com, everybody, as usual. And don't forget, just because it's a new year, if you guys are looking for Mini Cooper stuff, you guys know we still like our OG sponsors, right? Outmotoring.com, over at outmotoring.com. You want to check them out, like your parts house in the cloud. Just go over there, do it. You know something cool? Cravenspeed.com. Not only for your Mini, but for, like, I don't know, almost every automobile brand, Cravenspeed's making stuff now. especially if you got a Fiat in the
Yeah, they're
garage, a
killing it.
Miata.
They're killing it.
They are, and you need to follow these guys on the social medias too. It's the only thing I'm still following on Instagram is cravenspeednoutmotoring.com. Just go over and check them out. And then of course, motoringbadges.com, motoringstripes.com. Go over there, get something nice. There you go. Done and done. Piece of cake. Right. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any concerns, you know what you can do? Get emails, feedback@whiteroofradio.com. You can also email us, feedback@whiteroofradio.com. That was weird. Can I start the outro over again?
Sure.
Is that cool, or would that be weird right now?
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post. That's right. I do all that now. Anyway, if you guys, that's the end of the show. We're done for this week. Thanks for joining us once again. We're gonna go and shut it down. This makes the part of the show where I like to make the funny clicking sound, and then I say, questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead, click back over to whiteroofradio.com. Leave us a note in the show notes. You can also email us, feedback@whiteroofradio.com. But until next time, gang, this is DB. I'm done.
Cheers.
See ya.
Cheers.